Well, I hope you're having a great day. It's a beautiful time of year. The birds are singing, trees are blooming, spring is in the air, and Easter is right around the corner. And if you're just joining us, we are seeing Easter through the eyes of the people who lived it firsthand, in hopes that we would truly see Easter this year and be encouraged by this amazing event in the life of the church. And today we're looking at one of the most well-known people in the Easter story, specifically one of the most well-known antagonists in the story. And it's a little bit too simple to call this person a bad guy, because his character is a little bit more complex than that, as we'll see. But today we're looking at Pontius Pilate. He comes into the story later on in the account after Jesus' arrest. He's been questioned through the night. It says this in Matthew chapter 27, that early in the morning, this is on Friday morning, early in the morning, all the chief priests and the elders of the people made their plans how to have Jesus executed. And it doesn't go into detail there, but Pontius Pilate was a part of this. They were going to try to get Pontius Pilate to take care of Jesus, because it says this in verse 2. So they bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. The Roman Empire was so vast at that time, they split it up into regions, territories, and they would have governors, or what they called prefects, that would oversee a certain area. And Pontius Pilate was the person who was over Judea, which is kind of the southern part of Israel, which included Jerusalem. So he's the governor in Jerusalem and in Judea at that time. And the chief priests and the elders wanted to get him involved to take care of this problem that they had with Jesus. It says this a few verses later, in verse 11. Jesus has been taken to Pontius Pilate. He's in his presence, and he says, meanwhile, Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You have said so," Jesus replied. When he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, apparently they were accusing him in front of Pilate, it says that Jesus gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you?" But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge. And look at this, to the great amazement of the governor. One of the other gospel accounts says simply that, and Pilate was amazed. Pilate was impacted by Jesus. He saw something different in Jesus. Jesus didn't fit the mold of the way people interact with the Roman Empire, and Pilate knew something was up. He was amazed at Jesus. The account goes on, and it talks about what we mentioned last week, that there was this tradition, this custom of releasing a prisoner to the people. And so Pilate mentions, hey, I've got Barabbas in jail. Do you want me to release Barabbas to you? Or do you want me to release Jesus to you? And then in verse 19, it says this, while Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him this message. This is the message from Pilate's wife to Pilate. Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him. So Pilate's wife has a dream, or maybe several dreams, or maybe a sleepless night, and it all centers around Jesus. And so she sends word to Pilate, hey, you need to get out of this while you can. Have nothing to do with that innocent man. Do not play into the hands of the chief priests and the elders that want you to punish this man. She even uses the word innocent. And I think if nothing else, the takeaway for today is that husbands, you should listen to your wives. They're always right. They're always right. But we know that's not what Pilate did. Verse 20, but the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus executed. Which of the two do you want me to release to you? Asked the governor. Barabbas, they answered. What shall I do then with Jesus, who is called the Messiah? Pilate asked. They all answered, crucify him. Why? Pilate said. What crime has he committed? Again, Pilate sent something, not only from what his wife sent to him, but when Pilate was in Jesus' presence, he knew something was up. So he's asking them, why? What crime has he committed? But they shouted all the louder, crucify him. When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. I am innocent of this man's blood, he said. It is your responsibility. which is such a interesting thing that in that moment he's saying, hey, I'm trying to get out of this, but he really didn't get out of this. He could have, and he didn't. Because verse 25, all the people answered, his blood is on us and on our children. 26, then he released Barabbas to them. Pilate released Barabbas, the convicted murderer. But he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. Pilate saw that there was something up with Jesus. There was something different about Jesus. He sensed something great about him. I would say, the scriptures don't say that, but I would say he sensed something great about Jesus. He saw it, he sensed it, but he didn't receive it. He didn't accept it. And for us today, that is the challenge. We can see Jesus, we can hear about him, we can sense that there's something great about him and still not receive him, and still not accept him, and still not walk in his ways, walk in the life that he has for us. And for some, that means that they never believe and they never follow. But for those of us who are followers of Jesus, we can still do that. We can know that he is the Savior of the world and still go our own way when it comes to different areas in our lives. So the challenge today is, as we think about Pilate, as we see Easter through his eyes, is not just to see it, not just to sense it, but to truly accept it. Let's receive Jesus into our lives today. And let's follow him with all our hearts. He is the Messiah, the Savior of the world. We'll see you tomorrow.